Hello! Well, another day, another vlog. Let's go off to Régis Le Bris's pre-Manchester United press conference. Of course, Sunderland going down there at the weekend to Manchester, hoping for another away win after their win at the City Ground against Nottingham Forest. 1-0, Omar Alderete with the goal. And of course, Sunderland had to put on quite a good defensive display in the second half of that game to get all 3 points, but they were certainly worthy winners in the end. Yes, Forest missed a couple of good chances, but I think Sunderland probably deserved at least the point from the game, if not all 3, and of course they got all 3. So let's get off to Régis Le Bris's press conference now, and you're coming along with me, as you will be for everything else now coming up on this channel, whether it be press conferences, matches, etc., anything else that gets covered by me here in the northeast. So let's get going now to the Academy of Light. And so here we are at the Academy of Light. Now we go in that little door over there. That's next to where the media centre is here at Sunderland's training ground. And then, of course, in there, we'll be speaking to Régis Le Bris at 1:30. Well, here we are, just out of the press conference now with Régis Le Bris, and I thought it was important to ask him about adaptability from Sunderland's point of view, because, of course, they've had players come out of the side via suspension or via injury, but they've had other players who have slotted in so well and made the transition really quite easy. And on that, I've asked about how the defence and the goalkeeper have gelled, and also spoke about goal scoring and making sure that the goals are shared around, that deeper players also get in amongst the goals as well. But let's have a listen exactly to what he said in the press conference itself. Régis, just on your adaptability, how important is it that you've had players come out of the team because of injury, suspension so far this season, but you've had those being able to slot so seamlessly into the side and essentially continue your momentum?
Because we are consistent, I think. So players from last season, for example, when they had to come off the bench, they were ready because they know the system, they experienced different situations, so the connection is really quick. And I think we created within the squad clear idea about how we want to use our players, who might be the starter, who could be the second one, and if you get your opportunity, just get ready because it will be for you now. So for example, for Arthur, for Régis, when they had to step up, they were ready, knowing the system, knowing their teammates, and it wasn't so difficult for them to connect with the squad.
And just on the defence, how easily or how quickly have you been able to get Robin Roofs to gel with that back four and make them such a solid unit?
I think good players help. It's always easier with someone who is really smart, curious, with the willingness to learn every day, with a really high level, so the attitude is absolutely unbelievable in this group, and Robin is one of these players. And just finally, when it comes to goal scoring, do you encourage your deeper players, whether that be midfielders or even defenders, to get in goal scoring positions and execute plans like we saw at Forest when Omar scored last week? Yes, set pieces, I think. In this league especially, it's so hard to break the opponent in set attack. In transition, maybe it's a bit, we say easier, but not so much. But set pieces are really crucial for especially a promoted team to be competitive in that league. A few hours after the conclusion of that press conference, it's now the evening of that day, and it's time to debrief what was said by Régis Le Bris from what I asked him. Of course, my first question, as you heard there, was about players coming into the side who had been on the bench or could be seen as squad players, fitting in really, really well and not really making any sort of bad impact on the squad because of those who've had to come out of the team via either suspension or injury. Of course, most prominently, you've got Ronaldo Mandava, who was suspended, sent off against Aston Villa, and then you've got Habib Diarra, who's out with injury until around the December period. But you've had Masuaku come in, you've had Chris Rigg come in,
And clearly Le Bris trusts his squad. He trusts them all to come in and to do a job and to be part of that team. It's very much a case of him trusting the players, and he knows that every player will get their opportunity, and it's more actually about them taking that opportunity, but he certainly trusts them to do that. And so far his trust has been well placed because, well, Chris Rigg coming in and Masuaku coming in certainly did the job against Nottingham Forest. Obviously Chris Rigg also started against Aston Villa as well, but he was forced off because of the Mandava sending off. He did look quite upset about that, to be fair, at the time, and who can blame him? It was his first Premier League start. But since then, things have looked pretty good for Sunderland, and certainly I think Le Bris quite keen to point out that this is it's a collective effort. It's not just the players who start the games, it's very much a squad game, and that this close-knit feel is created at Sunderland is something he's wanting to nurture a lot. And even though players aren't always going to be starting games, they will get their opportunities. I know I've just repeated myself there, but clearly that's something he wanted to press home, and I think that I should probably press that home as well. So clearly a squad game at Sunderland, and players understand Le Bris' system. Even if they're not always starting the game, they know exactly how to fit into it really well. Then, of course, I mentioned the connection between the goalkeeper, Robin Ruffs, and the defence in front of him, and how they've gelled so well so quickly because, of course, Ruffs has played really well, especially in the last couple of games as well, making good saves against Aston Villa, Crystal Palace in particular, and, of course, at Nottingham Forest as well. But, of course, his defence in front of him, they've had a role to play too. And so Le Bris, again, he just made clear that, these are good players. Even though some of them are quite young, these are good players and they understand my system. They know exactly what they're meant to do. And because they're good players as well, they're just able to gel. And to be fair, I think that's probably surprised him a little bit. And I think it's surprised supporters, journalists alike as well, as to how fast players that have come into the squad have gelled with each other. And, of course, with the players who are already at the club. But clearly Le Bris has created this unity within the squad, and obviously you've got players who are from the area as well, and also you've got leaders like Granit Xhaka who've come in, and it's all just been able to come together really quickly, and it's been really beneficial for them. And finally, I asked about goal scoring because I thought, well, Omar Alderete, he scored against Nottingham Forest, and he's a central defender, and yet he was in the right place at the right time to head home past Matt Sells at the City ground. So I asked, well, why is it that, well, not why is it, but are you encouraging players who are perhaps not expected to be goal scorers to actually get into goal scoring positions? And he was like, well, yes, this is the case. And I think I can understand why, because he made clear that set pieces are so important for newly promoted sides, because some defences will just be really, really set and really hard to break down. And actually set pieces are good opportunities for teams like Sunderland to score, despite the capability they may have going forward in open play. Sometimes you just need a ball into the box, a good ball into the box, and a good header. And that's exactly what they did against Forest. And by encouraging that, you're going to get more goals like that throughout the season. And so if you can't break defences down during open play, that's your best route to a goal. And so it's clear why he's encouraging that. Of course, next for Sunderland is Manchester United at Old Trafford. That's a tough game. Well, I say it's a tough game. Manchester United, of course, haven't had a good start to the season. We all know this, but it still is Old Trafford, and Sunderland, they will go into this game thinking, well, Le Bris actually pointed out himself just how tough it's going to be. It is Manchester United, and that doesn't really change, but you can't take away the fact it's a good time to play them. They're not playing well. Ruben Amorim is he's under such a lot of pressure there, and he's sort of set in his ways and his formation. Le Bris actually was asked about being adaptable, and he said, well, he likes to be adaptable, but also that consistency can be important for players as well. You don't want to change things too much so that players lose their rhythm, but at the same time, he knows that adaptability can be key in certain situations. So on that note, they've done well to do that so far, Sunderland, and I actually think they go into this game maybe just as the favourites. Seems odd to say that, but they're the side in form, not Manchester United. So actually, I think Sunderland are the favourites in this game. But what is on paper is not what's on grass. So they go into this game knowing they can win, but that winning there is still another matter in itself. Let's see whether they can do that. Until then, though, we'll see you next time for the next press conference or match or wherever I end up next in the North East covering sport and football. But until then, thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.